Imagine you are sitting at a casino table. The lights are dim, the air is really stale, and the dealer across the felt is just staring right through you.
Yeah, it's an intimidating vibe.
Exactly. But the stakes on this table, they aren't chips, they aren't money. The stakes are literally your eternal soul and your earthly happiness.
Wow, high stakes.
Right. And here is the thing that makes your stomach just drop. You cannot get up from the table.
The doors are locked.
The doors are locked. You are forced right now to place a bet on the single most consequential coin toss of your entire existence.
I mean, it is the ultimate forced hand. You can't fold, you can't pass, and you definitely cannot cash out early. You're compelled to play the game.
That inescapable casino, that is the exact mental model we are diving into today. We are doing a deep dive into Pascal's wager.
It's such a fascinating concept.
It really is. It's essentially this philosophical shortcut through life's biggest mystery. And it was formulated back in the 17th century by Blaise Pascal. He was this brilliant French mathematician, a physicist, and a theologian.
A real Renaissance man, honestly.
Yeah, a total genius. So to really unpack this, we are pulling from a fascinating stack of sources for this deep dive. We have Pascal's original posthumous notes, which is a collection known as the Pensées.
Right.
And we're also looking at modern philosophical journals that critique his logic, some historical counterarguments, and even contemporary risk assessment models used by economists today.
Which is crazy to think about how it connects to economics.
Totally. Because our mission today is to figure out how a guy who literally helped invent probability theory tried to solve the ultimate existential gamble. And why it makes people so deeply uncomfortable and how it completely rewired the way we make decisions.
Yeah, and to understand why Pascal felt like we were all trapped in this casino in the first place, we really have to look at his view of the universe.
Right, his historical context.
Exactly. Pascal lived during the scientific revolution. So this was a time when humanity was inventing telescopes to see the stars and microscopes to see the incredibly small.
We were suddenly seeing everything.
We were. But instead of feeling empowered by all this new science, Pascal actually found humanity's place in the universe to be terrifyingly fragile.
Huh. Why is that?
Well, he saw us as suspended between these two incomprehensible extremes. He actually described man as, quote, a nothing in relation to infinity, all in relation to nothing, a central point between nothing and all, and infinitely far from understanding either.
Man. So rather than science giving him all the answers and making him feel confident, it just highlighted how vast the darkness really was.
It highlighted our profound limitations, yeah. Pascal believed that human reason is just an incredibly flawed tool when it comes to comprehending the infinite.
Because our brains are finite.
Right. We are finite beings with finite brains. If a divine, infinite creator exists, the gap between our minds and that reality is just insurmountable. Because of this infinite distance, he concluded that reason, science, logic, none of it can possibly prove or disprove the existence of God.
It's just out of our depth.
It is, from our limited perspective, a true coin toss.
I think of it like being a passenger on a moving train, hurtling through the pitch black. You don't know where it's going, you have no idea who is driving the engine, but you still have to decide how you're going to act while you are on board.
That's a great way to put it.
Because you can't just sit there completely frozen, right? Refusing to choose how to live is, in itself, a choice.
Yeah, and Pascal actually used a very similar phrase. He said, you are embarked.
You are embarked.
You are already on the ship. And since human reason is utterly powerless to answer the core question of whether God exists, Pascal realized we just have to abandon the search for logical proof. Instead, we have to evaluate the expected consequences of our choices.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where Pascal the mathematician really takes the wheel. He takes a concept that we now call expected value, and he applies it to theology.
Which was completely unheard of at the time.
Right. And in normal terms, expected value is just probability multiplied by the payoff. So if I offer you, say, a 50% chance to win $10, the expected value of that bet is $5. You weigh the cost of playing against the mathematical expectation of winning.
Yeah, and Pascal builds a decision matrix for the ultimate bet, laying out 4 possible outcomes. So let's walk through the grid. In the first scenario, you wager your life that God exists, and you live according to that belief.
Okay.
If it turns out you're right, the payoff is an infinite gain, basically an eternity of happiness.
Right. And on the flip side of that same bet, you wager that God exists, but you are wrong. The universe is empty. Your penalty there is just a finite loss.
A finite loss, yeah.
Like you might have sacrificed some earthly pleasures, skipped a few parties, or spent your Sunday mornings at church for nothing.
Yeah.
But your loss is capped. It ends when you die.
Exactly. Then we look at the alternative wager. You bet that God does not exist, and you are right. You get a finite gain. You live by your own rules, indulge in whatever earthly pleasures you want. But again, the reward has a hard stop. It ends at death.
Which brings us to the terrifying fourth option. You wager that God doesn't exist, but you are wrong.
Yeah, the worst case scenario.
The penalty here is an infinite loss. You miss out on an eternity of happiness, or perhaps you face some form of infinite punishment.
What is genuinely revolutionary here is that this isn't just like a dusty theological plea. This is literally the first formal application of decision theory in recorded history.
Really, the very first.
Yeah, Pascal is taking mathematics and applying it to human behavior and existential risk. And the math dictates something very specific. In any expected value calculation, a positive infinity mathematically swallows any finite number.
I want to push back on that a bit, though, because the human intuition really struggles with infinity. I mean, if I think the chance of God existing is incredibly small, say, like a tiny fraction of a percent, why should that dictate my entire life? It feels like terrible odds.
Well, let's apply the expected value formula you mentioned earlier, probability multiplied by payoff. If the probability of God existing is 0.0000001%, but the payoff is positive infinity.
Oh, I see.
Any fraction of infinity is still infinity. The math tells us that the expected value of believing is infinitely high, while the expected value of not believing is infinitely low.
Wow.
Even if you think it is a massive long shot, wagering a finite stake, which is just your brief human life for an infinite payout, is literally the only rational choice a logical actor can make.
But humans are not purely logical actors. I mean, we are messy, emotional creatures. The math might be flawless on a chalkboard, but you can't just command your brain to genuinely believe something just because a spreadsheet tells you it's a good investment.
And that is the exact problem. This brings us to a massive psychological critique found in our sources. The evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins and the American philosopher William James both attacked this exact vulnerability.
They didn't buy it.
No, they argued heavily against the idea of inauthentic belief.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because William James put it really sharply. He argued that trying to game the system with a mechanical calculation lacks the inner soul of real faith.
Exactly.
If you are sitting at that casino table and you place your chips on God, strictly as an insurance policy to save your own skin, wouldn't an all-knowing deity see right through the hustle? Like, it feels deeply dishonest.
It does feel like a mercenary approach to spirituality. If a deity is truly omniscient and judges the sincerity of your heart, a self-serving, calculated wager seems mathematically destined to fail.
You'd lose the bet on a technicality of your own insincerity.
Right. But diving deeper into Pascal's writings, we see he actually anticipated this exact problem. He wasn't trying to magically convert staunch atheists into profound believers with a single math equation.
So who was he actually talking to then?
He was addressing the agnostic. The person stuck in suspended judgment who looks at the math, agrees with the logic, and says, the equation makes sense, but I am simply so made that I cannot believe. What do you want me to do?
Because you can't just flip a cognitive switch. I mean, I can't decide to genuinely believe the sky is green just because you offer me $1 billion.
Yeah.
My brain just won't let me do it.
Pascal completely understood that. His remedy was incredibly modern, actually predating cognitive behavioral therapy by centuries.
Really? How so?
He advised this skeptical person to act as if they believed. Take the holy water, have the masses said, go through the physical motions of religion. Pascal believed that the inability to have faith didn't stem from a lack of intellect. The intellect already solved the math.
So what was the block?
He thought it stemmed from human passions and emotions. So by changing your physical habits, you slowly break down your internal resistance.
Ah, so it's the psychological concept of fake it till you make it. You immerse yourself in the culture and the actions, and eventually the cognitive dissonance fades. The behavior shapes the belief.
Exactly. And we have to view this through the lens of Pascal's own background. He and his family were deeply involved in a movement within Catholicism called Jansenism.
Okay.
And Jansenism heavily emphasized that human effort alone could never achieve salvation. It required a transformation of the heart. They leaned on St. Augustine, who famously pointed out that mere intellectual belief is entirely useless. Augustine wrote that even, quote, The demons believe and tremble.
The demons believe and tremble.
Mm.
Meaning, simply acknowledging the factual existence of a creator doesn't save you.
Exactly. The wager is merely the very first step. It gets you in the door. It provides the rational permission for a skeptical mind to start practicing the habits that might eventually open the door to genuine faith. The math doesn't save you, it just convinces you to take the medicine.
Okay, let's say we accept that premise. We accept that we are forced to bet, the math of infinity makes sense, and we can even habituate our brains into genuine belief. We immediately crash into the next massive hurdle, which feels like a fatal flaw in the entire casino setup.
Which table do we sit at?
Yes,
Yeah.
fixed table. Philosophers call this the argument from inconsistent revelations, because it is absolutely not a simple coin toss with two sides.
No, it's a multi-sided die.
Exactly. The philosopher J.L. Mackie wrote extensively about this. If I decide to make the wager, I am faced with a dizzying menu of options. Do I bet on the Roman Catholic God? The worshippers of Odin? Do I bet on Kali? The 18th century philosopher Denis Diderot had a very famous critique where he essentially shrugged at Pascal and pointed out that an Islamic imam could use the exact same mathematical matrix to compel belief in his own theology.
Yeah, and it creates a severe mathematical problem for the wager. If thousands of competing religions all offer an infinite payout for belief and an infinite punishment for picking the wrong team, the matrix devolves into chaos. The positive infinities cancel each other out, leaving you completely paralyzed again.
Right. So how did Pascal himself deal with the fact that there are thousands of competing claims to the infinite?
Honestly, he had a massive historical blind spot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, he lived as a 17th century Frenchman and viewed this objection mostly as a rhetorical trap. He just brushed off pagan religions as mere superstition. And when it came to Islam, he claimed that in his era, it lacked the historical proofs or divine authority he personally perceived in Christianity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he genuinely thought if a rational person investigated the details, his specific version of the divine would be the obvious empirical frontrunner.
Which is, incredibly convenient for his argument, but it doesn't hold up at all if you were trying to make a universal mathematical law.
Yeah.
But our sources mention that modern defenders of the wager have tried to tweak the matrix to fix this.
They do. They take the witch god pushback very seriously. Modern apologists argue that when you look at the vast menu of world religions, you can instantly use decision theory to cross off any faith that only offers finite, semi-blissful promises.
Like what?
For instance, the halls of Odin or certain ancient pantheons. They just drop out of the calculation because a finite afterlife doesn't trigger the mathematical override that positive infinity does.
So they use the math to narrow the field down, leaving only the religions that offer mutually exclusive infinite blisses.
Exactly. And some contemporary thinkers take a more ecumenical approach. They suggest the wager functions perfectly well if it just brings you to a state of generic theism.
Generic theism.
Yeah. The assumption here is that an infinitely good and rational creator wouldn't hand down an infinite punishment simply because a finite human got the specific name of the religion wrong, provided they were genuinely seeking the truth.
But, this assumes the creator is operating on our logic, which brings up my absolute favorite counter-argument from the sources. It comes from the French philosopher Etienne Souriau. He created this analogy that just highlights the ultimate presumption of Pascal's wager.
Oh, the leaf analogy.
Yes. He said, imagine a fool standing by a rushing river. He sees a leaf vibrating in the current, and the fool shouts out, I bet $1 million with the billionaire Rothschild that this leaf floats to the right side of that rock.
Just placing a high-stakes wager on a completely random event.
Right. So the fool watches, and sure enough, the leaf floats to the right. He jumps up celebrating, demanding his $1 million. But he gets absolutely nothing.
Right.
Why? Because Rothschild never agreed to the bet.
It beautifully illustrates the leap of faith required just to construct the matrix in the first place.
Exactly. Souriau is asking the foundational question. What if God never agreed to accept this wager? What if the universe simply does not operate on this transactional risk-reward logic? You can bet your finite life on the infinite payout, but if the dealer at the casino never actually took your chips, you are just a person talking to a floating leaf.
You have to assume the nature of the divine perfectly aligns with human decision theory, which is a massive assumption. But despite all these philosophical critiques, what is truly remarkable is how the underlying architecture of Pascal's wager, this idea of weighing a microscopic probability against an infinite consequence, survived the 17th century and completely infected modern secular thought.
Before we get to the modern stuff, our sources show Pascal wasn't even the first person to realize this math right.
Not at all. The structure of risk-reward regarding the unknown has ancient echoes. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius had a Stoic version. He essentially argued that living a virtuous life is a win-win, regardless of whether gods exist.
Makes sense.
And there is also a famous recorded instance from the 8th century Muslim Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. He was debating an atheist and laid out a very clear wager. He said, "If what you say is correct, we will both succeed. But if what I say is correct, I will succeed and you will be destroyed."
That is literally Pascal's exact matrix. The infinite loss versus the shared finite destiny, centuries before Pascal was even born.
Exactly.
But what fascinates me today is how we've stripped God out of the equation entirely, yet we still use Pascal's math to evaluate extreme, real-world risks.
Oh, absolutely. It has become the foundational logic for how we handle existential threats. A perfect example from our sources is a thought experiment by the philosopher Nick Bostrom known as Pascal's mugging.
Okay, walk me through how a mugging involves expected value.
So imagine you are walking down the street and a mugger approaches you. He has no weapon. Instead, he says, "If you hand over your wallet right now, I promise to use my secret magic powers to give you $1 billion tomorrow."
My brain immediately says the probability of this guy having magic powers is practically zero.
Of course. But apply the expected value math we discussed earlier. If there is even a 0.000001% chance he is telling the truth, the promised reward is so astronomically high that pure expected value logic suggests the rational choice is to hand over the $20 in your wallet.
That's hilarious, but also kind of terrifying.
The thought experiment exposes how our standard logic completely breaks down when someone introduces the concept of an infinite or massive payoff.
And people have taken that logic to some very dark places on the internet, too. Like the concept of Rocco's basilisk. It's essentially Pascal's wager wrapped in sci-fi horror.
Yeah, that one is intense.
The idea is that a hypothetical future superintelligence, like an all-powerful AI, might one day be created. And this AI will decide to retroactively punish anyone who knew about its potential but didn't actively help bring it into existence.
It targets the exact same vulnerability in human reasoning. Even if you believe the chance of this specific vengeful AI being built is microscopic, the threat of infinite future punishment compels a purely logical actor to serve it right now.
It's the fourth quadrant of Pascal's matrix. Wagering it doesn't exist, being wrong, and suffering infinite loss. But, are there non-hypothetical examples of this? Things we are actually dealing with today?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, absolutely. The billionaire investor Warren Buffett applied the exact architecture of Pascal's wager to the crisis of climate change.
Really? Warren Buffett?
Yes, Buffett pointed out the mathematical parallel for environmental policy. Even if a person is a staunch climate skeptic and they genuinely believe there is only a 1% chance that the planet is heading toward a point of no return disaster, the math still demands action.
Because the penalty for unchecked climate change is total devastation.
Exactly. The cost of being wrong is so incredibly high, so close to an infinite loss for humanity that choosing inaction right now is mathematically foolhardy. You are wagering the survival of the species to save some finite economic costs in the short term.
It forces us to confront the math of uncertainty. So what does this all mean? Whether we are sitting at a cosmic casino betting on the afterlife, or evaluating global warming, or navigating the development of AI, we are constantly on that moving train in the dark.
We really are.
We rarely have all the facts, but we still have to decide whether to turn left or right. We are forced to weigh the catastrophic cost of being wrong against the unbelievable reward of being right.
And that leads to a final, entirely secular revision of the wager that builds directly on all the source material we've covered today. Let us say we strip away the concept of God entirely.
Okay.
We remove the afterlife, the heaven, the hell, the divine judgment, the AI supercomputers, all of it. What if we apply Pascal's wager to the concept of value itself?
How would that work?
Well, if there is no overarching meaning to the universe, if we are all just a random collection of atoms that will eventually blink out of existence, then pursuing virtue, kindness, and goodness costs us essentially nothing in the grand scheme.
Right.
But if there is inherent value in goodness, if compassion, truth, and love actually matter in some fundamental way, then we have absolutely everything to gain by pursuing them.
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
It is. So the ultimate question isn't just about what happens after you die. The question you have to answer right now as you sit at the table is this: what are you wagering your finite life on today?